Hello and welcome to the Back to the Feature podcast. I'm Giovanni Carlo.
And I'm John Vanderloo.
And we had a lot of fun doing this this October. We did a horror movie podcast. And we really had a lot of fun doing that night.
Yeah.
We got to sit down in John's lovely living room and just kind of have a nice conversation for a good hour and a half or so. And we definitely liked the experience of putting it together for you guys. So we figured we would pick up a new subject this week and give you guys another podcast. So I think that the thought in our head, and there's a lot of dark things we could definitely talk about in the world of movies right now, but I think that John and I want to keep it pretty positive, try to maybe inject a little bit of happiness and light and a little escapism, and there's no kind of greater genre of escapism at this point than superhero films.
Now, you know what?
As everybody knows here, the Justice League is coming to theaters. As we're sitting here making this podcast, the Justice League will hit the first theaters tomorrow. The general audiences will be able to get to see the Justice League on the screen for the first time. And I think that for me, and just like the inner child, that's an exciting prospect.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I actually took off work. I'm going to go see an IMAX with the wife. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
I think that no matter what, I think that's probably going to be a really good experience in IMAX.
Yeah, I did enjoy it. Just for the record, I did enjoy BVS. For those listeners out there, I'm not afraid to admit it. Mm-hmm. It's a flawed film for sure, but I did have a lot of enjoyment.
I have to say, like, in hindsight, I think we should all be really glad for BVS because I find it to be like, it's like the easiest movie debate topic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's the abortion of movie topics. You know what I mean? You can just get everyone going with just the 3 letters, BVS.
It's one of the more polarizing films ever in pop culture.
I think so. I'm not sure ever. We'll have to see how that stands.
I mean, like, in straight up, like, yeah.
Pop culture's gotten pretty old, John.
Yeah. It's true. It's a very broad thing to say.
I think that it's one of those things you always got to wait for longevity. You always got to wait and see how long that's going to last. But I think it is, though. It's one of the most polarizing films, period. I'm very certain of that.
Yeah, I mean, considering we're, 2 years out now almost, and it's still brought up daily on like movie talk groups, and it still has 100 comments at least. Oh, man.
It's easy. It's just easy views, easy likes.
But I was really excited to get this. But I know we would talk about Justice League, but even like Thor Ragnarok just coming out, real recently, and doing our review on that, and that went a little bit longer too, and that was spoiler free.
I think that's what sparked the conversation about this podcast was Thor Ragnarok. It's like we're kind of stuck right now, and they did Marvel and DC. You're cruel bastards. You're cruel bastards. Like I think we all know about. The Netflix Marvel shows all so happen to coincide with DC film releases. Yes, everybody stay home. Watch Daredevil. Don't go see that. They've been at eternal war for the longest time. And of course, Thor Ragnarok had to come out about a good 2 weeks before they got the Justice League out there. But I think that it definitely sparked the conversation with us about superhero movies, what the moniker of a superhero movie means anymore, and what is the level of, I guess, fun that is acceptable now. And I think that, where does the genre, what defines the genre, or how diverse can we really let it be?
Yeah, I think, for one, I think it can be as diverse as ever. I think that there should be nothing that holds it back. In terms of diversity and just like genre in general, because EBM is a very broad genre. It can be anything. V for Vendetta is a very, very different film from Deadpool.
Is it very?
It's actually funny. That was completely offhanded there, but because I brought that up those 2 movies the other night when we talked about it.
Vivisection. Am I doing it? Oh yeah, no, that's such a great example.
But how do you gauge like what is the better film, and does it really matter? Because the genre of the 2 is very different. The tone of the 2 films is extremely different. And and just, I guess, breaking down level of enjoyment, that is a subjective thing. But how do you break it down objectively, like I like to do? It's that's why that's why I wanted to have this podcast.
I think that, and where I kind of want to start is, I think it's very generational. We still have some people that remember the golden age of comic books. They remember when comic books were actually this popular source of entertainment. You go buy a cheap issue, down at the corner store of, the Flash, the old school Flash, or maybe be reading about Billy Batson's Shazam, or, Captain Marvel, back in the day, as it was, before the lawyers got involved. There was a golden age of comic books, coming out of World War II, looking for that escapism. And I think that's where you see when it comes up is the escapism. But, for us, it's very different. Being younger, the sources definitely change. And I think that also, because the sources change and the times change, the aesthetic of your superheroes change. And I think that, there's different generations have kind of experienced the different waves of comic books. And I think they really define them because of that.
Yeah. Well, Alan Moore, with his comics in the 80s there.
Late 80s to early 90s, definitely an interesting era for comic books.
And when film shifted too, in terms of granted, we didn't have a lot of comic book movies before that, but they were typically more campy and a little more just fun entertainment.
Well, they were definitely aimed at kids. They were aimed at kids, and they weren't very particularly smart, or they didn't throw a lot of budget at them. Like I said, I think that's where your golden age era of comic book fans, that part of it comes in, because there was definitely a very singular aesthetic that was going on during that time. With the kind of heroes you had, the ultra patriotic. You had a lot of them that were geared toward kids, and escapism or wish fulfillment for kids, like Shazam or Captain Marvel. This is kind of a great example of that. You know what I mean? What kid wouldn't wish that I'm a kid, but I could turn into a grown man and a superhero whenever I want?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be an interesting thing now that we have Zachary Levi coming now to become Shazam, and that the movie's happening. That's going to be an interesting thing, I think, for kids nowadays to take a look at that idea. But I think that escapism was a huge part of its success. And I think a lot of the older crowd, and the ones that really don't get on board with the films and how popular they are, is because they really believe that they're really just meant to be for children, and something that you put away after a while.
Yeah. Man, I don't even know where to go from that. I guess I just wanted to touch on Thor Ragnarok specifically, and some of the negative feedback that film got for it being too funny.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't bother me at all, because it's just we have to have this flavor. This flavor can exist. This type of film can exist.
Now, not quite like the golden age where it was more fun and innocence, but definitely fun. Fun being a part of the comic book genre.
Yeah, and I'm also a fan of Man of Steel. I'm a fan of like I said already, I'm a fan of BVS, and that's it took itself very seriously.
Yeah.
So just breaking it up, you can have films like Logan, which is my favorite comic book movie of this year, and probably of all time, actually. And of course, The Dark Knight being one of those films that's it's everyone's favorite. It's pretty much everyone's.
It's the right answer movie.
It's the right answer movie, yeah. But Thor Ragnarok comes out, and it's already in this big connected universe. We've already gotten dozens of films, or close to dozens of films. Mm-hmm. We will have dozens of films, But just seeing the type of team up movie, and just kind of going into it, what do you want from this movie? Personally, I thought it was refreshing as all hell to see that movie come out the way it was. Some people would probably say the opposite.
Yeah, and I think it's where you value that, that fun factor. I feel like that's the most divisive thing about it. Either people love how fun it is, or they hate that it's just
not
too
taking
fun and it's
seriously.
Not serious enough. And I think that's definitely an issue that we see with our audiences as far as coming in, and expectations. Expectations, I think, it's always the killer in films sometimes for audiences,
Yeah.
And I think that to an extent we can't help that. We all want them to be the thing we want them to be.
Yeah.
You know, we want to walk in, we want to love it, we want it to be exactly what we imagined, and how we define it. You know, so for Taika Waititi, doing a Thor movie meant something different than what for other people that would mean. And I definitely get from that aspect though of like it being Ragnarok. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The stakes need to be high, that there needs to be some darkness, that this is the possible end of a trilogy, which of course in movies we know that trilogies are sacred. So the idea of ending on something that was so tonally different than the other Thor films, which are, I mean, flawed films. I like the first one. I really do. I love Kenneth Branagh. You know, so hearing that he was going to direct one of these, I was excited immediately. I love the aspect of the lore, the fantasy and sci-fi elements. But there's definitely things about the way that they approach that Thor that I'm so glad that this Thor didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just like, I don't know, the fun factor. Like, I feel like, you know, you go down to your local comic book shop, you pick out a comic. It's like, what is this issue going to give me? It could be a really fun, like, crazy story. Like, out in space, like Thor and Hulk, cracking jokes and like just going out on this fantasy adventure, like having fun, like that exists, you know, and it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
And like if you, I don't know, that's the way my brain took it. Like that's just like when I was watching, I was like, for one, this film is gorgeous. I mean, it's crazy how vast and how large that film feels, and just I know some people complained about the special effects, but I actually thought they looked pretty darn good. Yeah. I mean, these are some of the most expensive movies ever made. You know, like special effects have never ever looked this good. You know, just in general. Yeah. But I don't know. You know, so there's from movie making aspects like that. What do I have to complain about? And then then just breaking it down, that it's just, this is a fun comic book movie. This is one of those issues that I'm picking up. I'm gonna just dive in, just go on an adventure with Thor and Hulk. And really enjoy it, you know. And
in that way, it really, like I said, it kind of reaches back to some of those bygone eras of just real comic bookiness. Yeah, and that funness, and I mean, not really an innocence. I wouldn't say there's an innocence in Thor Ragnarok, but I think that you definitely it's that next era that comes after. As far as the big tonal shift in comic books being, you know, those 80s and 90s Frank Miller, Alan Moore, bringing in these darker stories. You know,
I do love.
Yeah, there's all these different flavors throughout the eras, and I think that we benefit from being younger. We benefit from the fact that, for us, I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, the first one, The King, it's Batman. It was Tim Burton's Batman. It's Michael Keaton swooping down saying, "I'm fucking Batman."
It's some of my favorite moments.
That's the moment. That's the moment. Yeah. And then, too, by an extension, the show after that. And I'm sure, because I mean, they basically made it for the kids. That moment meant everything, you know. And that show really, I think, for me, you know, the Saturday morning cartoons we used to get as kids. Between that, the X-Men show, and the Spider-Man show, we had all this variety of just great, like, superhero shows. And I think for a lot of people our age, that's where a lot of this got established, our love for comic books. We had the dark detective, we had the team-up with the X-Men, and then we had the fun guy that's just like all of us in Peter Parker. And it just really speaks to the beauty of comics, is that they're supposed to have variety. I don't pick up Daredevil expecting to read Spider-Man. Yeah. You know, I don't pick up a Hulk comic and expect that it's a team-up. Yep. You know, and you have these different flavors, and in that way, the genre's a lot more malleable than people give it credit.
Yeah, I mean, and just within itself, too, though, like Thor is, in the first film, he's overly serious. And that's kind of the fun thing about it, because he's a fish out of water. You know, but like at the same time, Thor in a crowd, Thor in an audience, Thor in a team-up film, or, you know, whatever. You know, I know that annoys people too, saying that it being a team-up movie, because it's not really. You know,
no, I wouldn't say, you know, whatever. It is.
But I mean, it's a collection of comic book characters, and they're going through an adventure together. And you know, I just love seeing that side of Thor, and just kind of like experiencing that, and of course, his comedic timing in the film is awesome.
You know, and then I'll take my little moment here to talk about Chris Hemsworth specifically. Yeah. he is such a talented actor, I think, in a lot of ways. And I definitely understand why Taika Waititi was like, this guy can deliver comedy. He can deliver comedic lines. He has amazing comedic timing. Why don't you utilize that? Now, at the same time, though, and I think this is where a lot of us fans are a little bit disappointed with some of the things in Ragnarok, is that he is also so good at selling these deep emotional moments.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like, talking about something, we talked about it before in private, I'm sure. I don't know if we talked about it ever on recording, but I love the little bits of him in Cabin in the Woods. And spoiler alert, if you've never seen Cabin in the Woods, there's a scene where he's on this dirt bike, and we know that he's not going to make it across this jump. We know there's a wall that he's going to come into contact with if he jumps. But he is so good selling that this person believes that he's going to do this, that for a second, you believe in him despite having all the information.
Yeah.
It's rousing. It's hopeless, but it's rousing. And it's such a great moment, and I don't feel like there's lots of people that pull that moment off, but then also go and be as funny as Chris Hemsworth is, and then also making us all feel inadequate as men. All at the same time.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth is he's a beast.
Yeah, he's pretty much a chiseled Adonis from, heaven. I'm sure that someone else has described him as such at some point.
Oh, I'm sure.
But the wealth of talent that guy has, I'm so glad that they utilized him in that way, because we haven't seen him totally do that. Yeah. I think not for all of Thor anyway.
I think I just want to talk about Logan now that we're recording, but I mean that movie is that's an amazing film. I love Logan when that came out. But I mean, even like Wolverine, the X-Men movies have all been pretty serious. They've all taken themselves pretty seriously, tonally.
Yeah.
They've all definitely more.
Oh yeah, totally. Even the first one, I'll say that for the whole series, they've been fairly serious. They haven't gone too far into campiness. The campiest thing that happens is that awful line by Halle Berry in the first one. Sure.
Oh. Yeah, that's really bad. I don't know who wrote that, but
I think she did. She just ran out of steam halfway through it.
Yeah, but I mean, like Wolverine, he's always been pretty serious throughout the series, but he's also used his comedy in there quite a bit, or like at least jokes were bounced off of him a lot.
Yeah, or just kind of using that gruff personality for comedic effect.
Yeah, which works really, really well.
Yeah,
but you don't get any of that in Logan. No. Oh, yeah, I mean, there's a couple scenes. There's a little bit, like normal people talk type stuff.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's just. I don't know. I guess I don't remember quite about all the complaints about Logan.
I think a lot of people was like, this is boring, which I'm just like, you're boring. You're boring.
I just told my son that the other day. I'm bored. I was like, only boring people get bored. What?
Blow his mind.
It's kind of true though.
It is pretty true. You can always find something.
I can bash 2 action figures together for like 6 hours as a 6-year-old.
Dude, talking about comic books and all this stuff, dude. That's where a lot of this comes from, man. Yeah, you have no idea how many Batman action figures have been in my life.
Yeah,
everyone
always talking bad about Batman, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin. Jeez, you know how many awesome toys there were?
Oh, dude, okay. This is my moment to brag, but for Christmas apparently that year, I think it was 1997, I got the Batman Forever Batmobile toy, where it could convert into the boat, the plane, the whole 9 yards. That thing was one of the greatest toys I've ever owned in my life.
Yes.
I don't even care that Tommy Lee Jones hated making that movie.
I didn't own it, but I had a friend that owned it, and
he was your best friend for a while, huh? Go over and play with his Batmobile. Man, yeah, that's where I think a lot of this love comes from, though. It's those moments, I think, that really establish
the economy of the 90s, yeah.
Thank you, Bill Clinton, thank you. But no, I mean, yes, sure. But I think that, though, for us especially, like, what defines that comic book movie, I think that those moments definitely come into play. They have to. I feel like for me they do anyway. Like, just those moments of being a kid. Like, I think of times, like, when I was a kid, one night, I used to have this play tent. And I would hang out in the play tent. I used to sleep in there at night. It was a Toy Story one. It would glow in the dark and had Buzz Lightyear on it and shit in outer space. And so, like, I'd hang out in my tent, and I had all my, like, pillows and blankets, sleeping bag, everything was in there, and then all my action figures. I remember one day my dad was home from work, because he used to work nights. He comes in, and I'm playing with Spider-Man, and he grabs Batman, and we're just sitting there playing with these superheroes, you know what I mean? Just, you know, he knew he was keeping me up, that he shouldn't be in there playing with me, kind of thing. And it was just kind of one of those things. It's a special moment that we shared over this connected thing. This thing that now, like, people have been able to pass these on to their kids, you know what I mean? They grew up loving Adam West, and then their kid, you know, comes, you know, they have their kid, and then Michael Keaton comes along, and they love Batman, and it's something that we can share. And it's crazy how these characters have gone beyond what a lot of pop culture characters go, you know, the heights that they go to. You know what I mean? As far as their level of importance and the way that they get ingrained, I think, in our memories and parts of them that we kind of take with us.
It's just all the different versions of them.
Yeah.
You know, and what to latch on to with all those. Like, I mean, the argument of who's better, Christian Bale, Michael Keaton.
Oh, man. I've argued with my dad about Michael Keaton and Adam West ad nauseum. You know? That's what he grew up. He grew up with 66, you know, watching that. And so, yeah, it's like it's so different. I remember this great example for what we're talking about is I watched Dark Knight Rises with him. And he was like, who the fuck is Bane? Because when he was paying attention to stuff, Bane was not a character yet. Bane came out of that era of the 90s where everybody looked like, you know, they were on roids and were like super edgy and stuff. He's one of those characters that came out later. So my dad's like, who the fuck is Bane? You know, those I watch, and I'm explaining, like, oh, he's Bane. And he created this whole plan to exhaust Batman, then he attacks him in the Batcave and breaks his back, and you didn't know this? And he's like, they didn't write those comics when I was a kid? Like, I don't know. You know, like, his definition of what Batman is so different because of just the different eras and how long, the longevity of comic books has given us this variety that we have.
Yeah, I think just touching on DC a little bit further, my dad's favorite comic book character was Superman.
So funny.
And and just like, yeah, that's right. But it's just what he stands for, you know. And I think that's what Superman is that's what's so great about Superman, you know, because he's kind of like he's the Boy Scout, you know, a little bit. Yeah. You know, he's that perfect symbol. He's the symbol of hope, you know. But I don't know. I love that about DC. I love that about the DC characters. Now we talked about it ad nauseum as well. You know, just about them being like the modern day. Well, even Marvel characters too. But
they're getting
like
to that point.
Modern day myth. You know, like
modern mythology.
Yeah,
they're kind of almost deities.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
People kind of worship at the altar of Batman. I've got friends like that. I swear to God. If you were to place the Batman memorabilia in their house with crucifixes, you'd think that they were the, like, you know, they go to Wednesday Mass and everything. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Those people.
Oh, yeah. Shrines built out
of Batman. It's in a way, it's insane.
It is,
you know,
it is a bit insane.
the level that these characters have hit. But everybody's got these different definitions of what that character still means.
Yeah. But I don't know. I a little bit of it is just like I love the innocence of it all. You know, like he loved the original Superman movie, my father. But I mean, he also really liked Man of Steel too.
Oh yeah.
You know, oh yeah, totally. I actually got him for his birthday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got him a Superman card and everything.
He wasn't bothered with Superman killing somebody?
No. I think it's just because he. I don't know. I love Henry Cavill as Superman. I think he plays it really well. I think his innocence. He plays that character really well. I think Man of Steel sets it up exactly how it should be. He's broken when he has to kill Zod. I mean, it's not like some unbelievable thing. Oh, Superman broke his code. You know, it's like he did not break his code when he killed him.
Yeah, I think, and it's great because Honest Trailers addressed it in their Man of Steel Honest Trailer, and they talk about that. You know, to understand, you know, the value of life, he has to understand what taking a life is like. And we were trying to approach it like what DC's trying to do You know, I mean, you can say whatever you want about how realistic it is, but just making the stakes more realistic, at least. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, okay. We know the Kryptonians don't exist. That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying is if these sci-fi elements were real? You know what I mean? How would a human being react? How would a human being get to these places a little bit? And I think that is one of the more inspired ideas that they've had of having, Clark be put in a situation where he has to take a life.
Yeah, because it was hard for him.
Yeah,
it was really hard for him. This is somebody he just met. Yeah, in Zod, and all Zod want to do is,
and it's possibly putting the capper on his own entire race by doing it. Yeah, it's the magnitude of not just one life, but millions of lives.
We should just pivot over to Michael Shannon now.
We could have a Michael Shannon podcast.
Oh yeah, actually that's a good idea.
Okay, next podcast, guys. Michael Shannon podcast. Write it down
for sure. Michael Shannon, but like just Zod's, his motivations are so well done. He's such a great villain. I think is just in all comic book films.
Yeah. I think he's definitely one of the best ones, and he definitely knocks the pants off most Marvel villains. That's me cracking a beer, everybody. That's right. But yeah, no, I think that he's head and shoulders above a lot of the Marvel villains, or a lot of the comic book villains we've gotten of all time. He's really what I think makes that movie hit an extra gear that not a lot of people give that movie credit for either. Yeah. Like, there's depth and layers in Man of Steel. It's not a perfect movie. I definitely get a lot of the complaints about the film, but there's a lot of things in that film that are actually really, really well done. And it's a great Superman movie.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, it's got it has issues in the plot for sure. Like there's some plot holes in there, and there's some character choices that people can complain about back and forth. Plot points. Like why? Yeah. I mean, there's definitely wouldn't be on that. Yeah, there's definitely stuff in there that's just kind of like. I don't know. We just talked about that even in the horror movie podcast. Yeah. About how people's expectations for films are so different now. Yeah. And just the scrutiny that films go under and the criticism that films are under because of the internet, because everyone has a keyboard now. Yeah. I have one in my hand right now and one in front of me on the computer. Everyone has it and everyone has an opinion and you can get your opinion out there. I a lot of ways feel bad for a lot of filmmakers for that reason. Yeah. But movie, you know what I mean? Man of Steel's, I think it's a pretty darn good movie. Yeah. In the general way of saying what is a good movie. There's some lapse of logic that would never have been criticized 30 years ago than it is now.
I definitely feel that in terms of superhero movies and in terms of Superman movies especially, it's one of the most valuable. It's one of those ones that I'm just this movie has a lot of flaws, and I don't sit there and love the movie, but I've rented that movie 3-4 times. Because I've wanted to watch it. I just had that inkling, it's man, I really want to watch Man of Steel. And just look at it again, and think about it again. And I really think, in a lot of ways, people sell it way too short, how good that movie was.
First Flight, when Hans Zimmer's score kicks in, and that his first flight in the Arctic, that is an extremely memorable scene in comic book films. Yeah, and and Zack Snyder, that's what Zack Snyder's good at too. Yeah, just realizing what that moment means to people watching and what Superman means to people, and just seeing it the way you see it, the way you feel it with Hans Zimmer kicking that score in too. Yeah. Such a good scene.
It's an iconic superhero movie moment. Yeah, I'll definitely give that. And it's crazy to sit there and think of this movie that a lot of people really just know or just discount it. Yeah, it's got one of the best villains of all time. Has an iconic scene, and I love the Kryptonian combat in it. I really do. I love the way that they move and fight.
I think we've talked about this too. And I don't know if we've ever. Maybe we briefly mentioned it in our, because we do have a really long post Logan review too about comic book movies. If you guys want to check that out, that's actually a video, not a podcast. But we talk about DC films and DC characters just being how powerful they are, and how hard some of that is to film. The airport fight scene is an awesome action scene. Yeah. But if DC was to do that same scene, it would not look like the airport scene. It's
no,
not
because
choreographed.
the airport would get wiped like immediately.
It's gone. But like I think it's interesting though because people criticize they've criticized Wonder Woman now, Man of Steel, BBS, and now just from trailers of Justice League saying like the green screen heaviness. Can you film? Can you actually film a DC character fighting without an extensive amount of green screen?
I would definitely say the point you bring up is excessively valid.
I mean, watching Iron Man like fly at 180 miles an hour is not Superman faster than a speeding bullet.
It's not Aquaman controlling all the oceans. You're right. You're very right about that. It's not the Flash moving faster than a hummingbird can bat its wings.
Yeah.
Just to go grab pizza.
Visualizing it, bringing it to the screen is a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you go to shoot on location the New Gods bringing Apocalypse to Earth. Not 100%. The spot. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like Batman you can. And the warehouse scene is,
it's a huge exercise in that.
One of the best choreographed fight scenes in action film
I would say
in a while.
There are knees he throws that I obsess about in that scene. Little moments, little things. It's so well put together.
It's like, of course you're going to get that from Batman because Batman moves like a human being, like a ninja. It's not Wonder Woman, a Greek goddess Wonder Woman, doing what she does.
Mm-hmm.
Or what is Martian Manhunter? We haven't seen him live action. Wherever, finally getting.
Do not get me that excited again, please.
But getting like the Flash now, I can't wait to see what Zack Snyder does with the Flash.
Yeah, and Ezra Miller is such a talented actor. It's just it's very exciting that he's Barry Allen, and I think he's already shown from the trailers. He's probably going to be a lot of people's favorite part.
Yeah,
like already. Which is good because everyone was pretty pissed about Grant Gustin not playing him, but I totally get to DC not wanting to mix the universes because that means you got to hang on to Stephen Amell for Green Arrow, and no one wants that.
No one wants
that. I'd rather have a plank of wood play him.
I do enjoy the Flash television show, but I mean,
have you watched this season?
No.
I haven't either because it's kind of a dumpster fire.
But I haven't really liked some of the stuff it's gone with in the last Flashpoint getting one episode and just everything after that. It could have been the season. They could have done that.
It was a pretty messy season.
Yeah,
they spread their writers around, and I think you really saw the effect of that. They took a lot of their Flash writers, spread them to the other shows to kind of help shore up the other shows so everyone watched all the shows and not just the one. And I think it's hurt the Flash quite a bit. But at the same time, if they're really going to start putting the Flash now here in film, I think that maybe it's the right move a little bit. In a way,
needed.
Not to emphasize the CW shows.
It's time.
Yeah,
it's time we get to see the Flash. It's time we get to see Barry Allen do what he does. But no, but that's just another thing too. Like DC characters, just touching on that, it's just their power level is just it's just crazy.
Yeah,
and I think that like when people are complaining about some of that green screen stuff, it's just like, come on, guys, really. Criticize like legitimate things. Mm-hmm. Like I can push that aside because of that logic.
Yeah,
that logic. So I give a lot of grace for that type of stuff. Because just like, how would you film it any other way?
Yeah, and I think that's a great example. Bringing up the airport fight scene, comparing it to having like almost anybody in the DC roster fight outside of Batman. It's a lot harder to show the power levels that are on display. And that's the thing though, is like with the DC and Marvel, and I've said it for a long time, I think I said it in our other episode, is that the way I look at it is that Marvel, it's like, how can we take superheroes and humanize them even more?
Yeah.
And bring them down to our level more. Whereas, DC is creating their own Mount Olympus. They're creating the new gods in a way. And I think that...
Symbols.
Yeah, exactly. Symbols, ideologies, myth. They're like creating new myth, And I think that's where that disconnect is between the two. Because they're really, in a lot of ways, conflicting ideologies. Now, I'm not saying that DC doesn't try to humanize their characters at all. They do, and they give them backstories, and they try to make them relatable and give them problems that we experience. But it definitely, in the power levels, is where you see it. And it's either you're in awe of it, or you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of complaints we were just talking about before we started recording about BVS, they make them relatable and stuff, but I think a lot of complaints for BVS was that they put you in that mode of Batman without giving you that backstory.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And it's like, we all know as huge Batman fans, we know the pain he's experienced in his past. Mm-hmm. We can connect those dots. Not everyone wanted to connect those dots because they didn't want to see him break his code too, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, I didn't have any issues with that, like just being put into that. Of course, I really hope everyone has seen now BVS, because this is a spoiler, but the death of Superman being a lot of complaints was that it was premature. Which, it's a valid point. You could have built something up to that. But I see what they're doing. I see what they're trying to do, DC. Mm. And moving the films forward like that, they wanted that to kind of propel Justice League into action, And I don't know, I loved the death of Superman in BBS. Mm. The song playing, the music is such an emotional moment. And Henry Cavill, the sacrifice, I don't know, personally, I loved it.
I think a lot of the people complaining about the death of Superman in BVS don't remember when the death of Superman came out. It is actually considered the comic book that ruined comic books. Because it broke the rule, okay? The rules, they don't die. Okay? I think we all know that about comic books. They don't die. They always come back, no matter what you think happened in the last one. Anything can happen. They're coming back. It's comic books. And it was the one that broke the rule. And it really upset a lot of people. It was a very divisive comic book. So when I hear people going like, they ruined your comic or they ruined that thing, and it's like, really, did Wikipedia tell you that? Because a lot of these people, I feel like they don't remember when that comic book came out, and remember that there's the amount of controversy that was around the decision to permanently kill him.
And this is just going back to Thor, why I'm totally fine with the tone that they went with is because we knew Thor wasn't gonna die. We knew that the weight of whatever was going to happen in that film really wasn't going to be anything substantial, even though, even though it was kind of substantial, because this whole planet was destroyed, everything. And a lot of his people
down to the foundation.
Down to the foundation, yeah. Really sorry if that was spoilers. But no, it's like, I want to go on a fun adventure because I know Thor's going to come back later anyway. Yeah. And he's going to have more moments before Chris Hemsworth leaves, and then we get the next Thor, for the next 30 years of Marvel movies, because they're never going away. Mm-hmm. It's like, I want to have a fun one, and why not utilize it? Why not do it now? Why not have that connection, get some Planet Hulk in there, have some fun with the movie? And, I don't know, that's why I'm fine with it, because it's just... They come back. It's just like the next issue is coming out next year. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to watch it.
This writer's going to pick it up, and he's going to do this new volume, and it starts right back over. The thing, too, with Thor Ragnarok, looking at the other movies, now, they have elements of fun, but it's this thing of, this is, really unconditional fun. In that way, it's like the free love movie of the Thor movies, because I feel like there's so much attached to the other Thor films in a way, and especially tonally, in that way of just with the Dark World, it's it's so just kind of blah.
Yeah, it's just
it's blah.
It wanted to be I don't know. I don't even know what example. When I think of fantasy, I obviously raise it up to the bar of Lord of the Rings, because that's just being one of the best out there.
Well, that's what the bar. That's what
it's the
they
bar
said
set,
it there, back in 2003.
it kind of wanted to kind of be that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it took itself too seriously. Obviously, had way too many flaws and all these things.
Yeah.
And now this one's coming. Thor Ragnarok. It's the third in the trilogy now. You already had the first Thor, which is a very early Marvel film in the universe, in the MCU, and then you had the second one that's just flawed, broken, and most people hated it.
Yeah.
What did you want this one to do? Like, did you really want? How much of it did you really want to tie in to make it a complete trilogy? Instead of let's just branch out, let's just make it fun. Let's just connect the two movies.
Because neither movie feels like an adventure for this character.
Yeah.
Like, the first one is about him being banished. You know what I mean? It's about the moral story about him being banished. The next one is this thing that could destroy his world, but they treat it much more seriously in that way. But it also involves more of him going to Earth, being a fish out of water, more of that Jane stuff, where it's like, Thor Ragnarok's like, well, shit, we got one more chance. Let's just have fun with this guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I feel like this, in a lot of ways, like, everything was so serious about the first couple movies that I'm glad that in that way that we got to have fun before we were done with him.
Yeah.
Like, he got to just go, like, let's just have Thor go on a fucking space adventure. Like, I guess I'm that kind of minimalist person in that way, that this shit makes me happy. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they're not looking for a fucking Infinity Stone. They're not stopping a fucking alien portal. You know,
there's no sky beams.
There ain't no Suicide Squad. They're just having a space adventure. And I think that's what is so endearing about the movie, too.
I love that kind of self-awareness too of him just kind of like becoming the hero. Because like Thor isn't really that popular of a comic book.
No,
you know,
not
and
really.
I kind of love that about the movie, about him just being like this is what it means to be a hero. I need to be the hero. Like him becoming kind of like that Spider-Man that Tony's. You know, I mean, you know.
Yeah,
Iron Man in the MCU is popular, not in the comics.
Yeah, because it's like he was always a warrior. Like, he was always a warrior. He was always one of the gods.
Yeah.
Like, this is him actually being like, I'm a superhero.
Yeah, I'm a superhero. I'm gonna have, I'm gonna save the day, you know?
I definitely agree. I think in a lot of different ways, where it's like, yeah, he's defending his home. He's defending his home in basically every single one of them.
I thought his character arc was really good, though, too.
In this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, like the things that he goes through and experiences, and him sitting at the chair at the end. I did like his arc.
I mean, it's crazy to think, too, that it's like he's finally become king after being, like, you know, having his ceremony in literally one of the first scenes of the first movie.
Yeah.
And seeing everything he's gone through to get there and feeling like he really earned it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, from a character standpoint, it definitely is a really satisfying end of the trilogy in that way. And it's not just pure fun. There's definitely a lot of things that happen and
Hela is a
high stakes thing.
Hela is a good villain too.
Oh, great!
I think they underutilized her. She could have had more screen time. There's all those valid complaints. She's not done though. She's coming back. There's no way. There's no way to use Cate Blanchett like that and then throw her out right away.
I hear the rumors of them saying that she is going to be the personification of death in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that Thanos is in love with her, trying to impress her.
I've thought that since the announcement, originally,
that Hela was going to be. Well, and that's the thing though of like Marvel Comics is like the world is so sprawling and everybody's kind of got their own little pocket of it where you go like, okay, Hela's the goddess of death. It's like, okay, but we also have this character who is just death, you know?
Yeah.
So it really does muddle it, and that's the thing. I think we talked about during our Thor Ragnarok review straight up. We talked about that. In a lot of ways, they consolidate the storylines. They don't sit there and do it.
Direct adaptation.
This
isn't Watchmen.
Like, this ain't Watchmen. Oh man, internet's fighting with you already, John, with that one about the direct adaptation thing, which they shouldn't bitch because it's really
page for page.
Yeah, just close. You could make that movie. Good job, Zach. Good job. You really did. I'm sorry.
I'm a huge Watchmen. Yeah,
it is. I'm sorry. You could have not made. No one could make the movie closer than what the fuck you did. The fact that people complain about that, like the only valid argument I think that people have is Malin Ackerman's acting. That's it. It's the only thing that I'm like, that's bad.
That's bad. Yeah.
But we don't see her anymore, and there's a reason, and that's why. But no, like, they're never, that's very rare if we get this direct adaptation like Watchmen, as direct as possible anyway. Argue with me in the comments, whatever, I'll fight you. But we don't get these direct adaptations, we get these consolidated stories. Now, yes, we talked earlier, like BVS. editing team needs to be fired. Bad way to put that story together. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
consolidate these storylines. Too many storylines to consolidate to. There's the studio and the editing team, man. Y'all
The
fucked
Dawn
it up.
of Justice. Come on.
Y'all fucked that
Goyer. It was Goyer, wasn't it?
Yeah, Goyer's a hack.
Goyer, seriously. How many films can he write riding on that Dark Knight train? I don't, like, is it like an infinite amount?
It depends on how many fanboys don't shut up about the Dark Knight on the internet.
Oh, no. I'm a huge Dark Knight fan. I'll just say that as a medium there between the hate audience right now.
Yeah. Find solace in John.
we both
Y'all
love
can fight me.
the Dark Knight, but there is like actually, just since we're on this subject, I mean, like the Dark Knight effect. You know, we've talked about a few times.
Yeah.
And actually, just kind of wanted to touch on that because of we're talking about movies like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 coming out this year, and movies like Thor Ragnarok, and like that fun tone, and I feel like everybody wants the Dark Knight now. Well, I don't even know, because DC films aren't funny enough, Marvel movies are too funny.
Yeah.
How do you make anyone happy? Like, I don't even know where the line is and who's on what side anymore. I don't even know. And that's it's so, like, it's so convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I just love being the guy who goes in a movie theater and just kind of accepts what the movie gives me.
Like, just
because
you're just open
how
to
else
what
do
they want to
you
show
exist?
you. Yeah.
Like, how do you get so angry and cynical over everything?
Well,
I don't know.
And like I said, though, like, I think they're missing the sight of the source. And like I said, when I was a kid, hanging out in comic book shops or bookstores or wherever it was that Mom left me that the comics were there, that I could get my hands on them.
Yeah.
I picked up specific comics for specific reasons. Certain characters brought certain things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't expect to pick up Spider-Man and get a Batman story. That's not what you do as a comic book fan. There's the purposeful variety. And I think that the movies have been gracious enough now to give us that. I'm glad that DC is like, we're going to do our own thing. Even if they make these gambles that don't always pay off, I love the fact that DC has got the balls to gamble. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, they roll
totally.
fucking dice at least. Sometimes you get fucking Suicide Squad. You know?
Garbage.
Snake Eyes. Whatever. It happens.
It happens. It does happen.
But the fact that they were ambitious enough to try to do something like that, I think speaks volumes. Where then you have something like Marvel that's just crowd pleasing. So there's like these drawbacks to both situations.
It's not even crowd pleasing anymore, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, in that way.
I mean, like I feel like for like people who feel like they're hardcore critics or want to be hardcore critics, and I'm not judging anybody out there.
No.
If that's you or not, but I just think that like, I don't know, this like Marvel's kind of leaving that, or people. I feel like people are kind of trying to separate that from Marvel. Yeah. They don't want them to be just fun.
They don't want to be too fun.
They don't want
too much.
You can't be too fun. You gotta have that serious stuff.
I kind of feel like, or everyone's like, you can have fun if you're the Guardians of the Galaxy.
If you get this checklist, if you get this check and this check and this check and this check and the checklist done, then it's a good movie. If it's not, then it doesn't fit. Yeah, or the tone didn't work. It's like, I think that's what was so interesting about. I feel like I'm talking about Thor Ragnarok way too much.
It's the focal point. It really is the kind of the movie where we're like, why did no one like? Why? No one liked it. But why is everyone being kind of really harsh about how fun this is? You know?
I mean, in a way, I don't know. When I sat down and I watched that movie, I did not think that's what that movie was going to be. Mm-hmm. And
even with Taika Waititi attached.
Even with Waititi attached, I did not think that movie was going to be like that. And I loved it because of that. Mm-hmm. I love that it surprised me. I love that it was just different. And the comparisons to Guardians of the Galaxy, this was not Guardians of the Galaxy, in my mind. I
think a humorous superhero film that isn't R-rated equals Guardians of the Galaxy to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's an easy.
Otherwise,
you're general. Yeah. Otherwise, you're Deadpool. Yeah.
It was such a weird criticism walking away, and to an extent, I felt it. Not that I sat there and was like, "Man, they should have done something different with this movie." Just like, give me a little space here. Give me a little air there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, very basic. In my mind, just very basic and mild criticisms of different things they could have touched up, they could have tightened up, they could have changed a few things here and there. But I get what they were going for, and I enjoyed what they did with it.
You bet all my goddamn ticket money I was sitting in that seat laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't walk away unsatisfied. You know what I mean? I didn't walk away like, oh, I regret watching that one.
Such a good year for comic book movies.
And speaking of
just watched Spider-Man: Homecoming yesterday again.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I bought it on Blu-ray.
I'll admit I've been playing it sometimes when I'm like settling in to go to sleep. You know, it's a nice little comfort food movie. I love Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
You know, I know there's a lot of Spider-Man 2 fanboys out there. You know, they don't like us Homecoming boys. But you know, for me, like I was talking about earlier, you know, we come from that generation of the 90s cartoons, and Spider-Man for me in a lot of ways was the show. You know,
I watched every episode of that.
How many times, right?
Yeah,
type thing.
Yeah,
like I don't even
rush
know.
home from school to watch it. I think it was like a 4 p.m. show on Fox 25, Fox 48. You know, the local Fox channel.
I watched that shit in Germany, man. I used to come in the mornings.
Yeah, love it.
It's just like X-Men. They'd still be playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's such great television.
Spider-Man 2, I don't know what it is. I was 14. Wait, when did Spider-Man 2 come out? 2004?
I think so.
Okay, Sam Raimi is one of my favorite directors.
Yep.
And I was 14 when Spider-Man 2 came out, so that's prime age of like being influenced by a comic book character. Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite comic book movies, but I think I do give the edge to Homecoming simply because I think it's just better overall, like just in general. I know like Spider-Man 2 has some really good like Spider-Man moments. Yeah. Has some really good character moments. There's some really good things, and Molina is great as Doc Ock. Yes. And of course the iconic camera work that Raimi always does, and the music is fantastic. It's a great comic book movie, it really is. But the acting is really hard to revisit because of the acting. Yeah, and I think honestly, I don't push it down that far. I don't say it's a meh movie because of the acting. I don't say it's trash or whatever people say when like a good movie is like doesn't meet one of their checklist items. They say it's a meh or it's a garbage movie. It's a piece of shit. No. I just dock a couple points because I think the acting is kind of bad in the movie. Yeah. Upon revisiting, I think Franco's terrible. And I love James Franco, and I can't wait for the Disaster Artist. Oh, my goodness. Squeeze that out real quick. Yeah, but just off subject, just quickly.
Sprinkle that in.
But no, and I've said it in our review too before, but like Sam Raimi loves the close-up shots. Mm-hmm. He loves close-ups on one actor. And Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst in those close-up shots.
They're not those actors.
They're not those actors.
They're not those actors.
And the last time I watched Spider-Man 2, and I think it was right before or right after Homecoming?
Yeah, it was right before Homecoming. I thought we got together and we watched it together.
Oh, it was after Logan.
Yeah, it was after
Logan. Yeah, because I rewatched Watchmen and The Dark Knight. Yeah. Watched some of my favorites.
You had to gather all the information after seeing Logan.
Yeah, so I need to gather. What is my opinion here now? I got to reassess completely. But I think Spider-Man 2 kind of took a dock of a couple points because of that. Some of that stuff I felt like it just didn't quite hold up. I think the film though has so many great moments. It is definitely. I can easily understand why it's your favorite movie if you can look past some of the acting in it. But I just think like Homecoming, I didn't feel like there's any really moments of like failure in certain ways. I think like objectively, I didn't feel like there was too many like I don't know.
And maybe it's because he's in high school or whatever the fuck it is. But with this Spider-Man movie, it gave me that same feeling of watching this show, being a kid, and it felt like that same Spider-Man. And I don't feel like that when I watch Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is a good movie. Spider-Man 2 is a great movie. I will never not say that. It's one of the best comic book movies ever made, but I'll watch Homecoming before I watch it. It just is straight up true, because the way I feel when I watch Homecoming, and a movie is about how we feel. Like, we all know that. Everyone that was listening to this, we know that. It's about how they make us feel. And that movie makes me feel like I'm a kid sitting on the carpet in front of a tube television watching the Spider-Man television show.
I think, I think this could be it right here. What type of moments in films do it for you? Mm-hmm. Because I think Spider-Man 2 has a better Spider-Man. Wow, I mean the end. Oh, okay, this is getting hard here. Obviously the train scene that we talked about in our Logan post-Logan review. I think the train sequence with Spider-Man and like him being lifted up by the New Yorkers on the train with his mask off. I think that's one of the best moments in comic book movies. One of the best. It's in the top 10. Maybe top 5. It's one of the best ones. I don't know if Spider-Man Homecoming has quite that scene, but I think overall it just has more consistency.
Well, it does have that scene, John, and it's when Peter is pushing himself from under that rubble.
Yeah,
when he becomes Spider-Man.
Yep.
In that moment, and then
it's a good scene. Yeah.
And here's the scene. Here's the thing, though. Is that, and for a comic book geek, that scene is a scene from the comics. That's a scene that we've seen, them recreating perfectly. Tom Holland's acting is so fucking on point in that moment.
He's good in it, yeah.
And I'm sorry, the train sequence, I know it works for a lot of people, and it works for you sitting across from me right now. But that is that stuff that, to me, it's so hammer on the fucking like head of the nail for me that it kind of just ruins it. I'm very understated. I like subtlety. And so for me, like the very obvious like Christ-like imagery, to me, in a way, that's lazy metaphor. You know what I mean? Christ metaphors are very simple. They're the most easily accessible, and they strike to an American audience like that. Now, and then 2 is Toby's acting on the front of that train.
It's not.
He's got the weirdest faces sometimes that it really takes me out of it, and I'm not trying to be judgmental of Tobey Maguire's face. But I'm saying that Tom Holland, in that moment, lifting himself out of that rubble, it just works for me better.
Yeah, it's a good scene. It is, and that's why I said, "Oh man, I'm second guessing it here." But I mean, but that's what I mean, though. And I think a lot of people latch on to certain moments.
Yeah.
And just touching on even like the Man of Steel scene, with like the first flight. Like obviously that scene like hit a lot of people, even if you didn't like the movie completely. First flight. That's a memorable fucking scene,
Yeah.
But like I don't know, there's some of those things with those really heavy hitting moments in comic books that can really like amplify your experience of certain films because these characters have such rich history. And that's kind of like the subjective elements that exist in film. But yeah, I mean just going back to that, and people will argue day and night about Spider-Man 2 over Homecoming. That was a hot topic there in July, but I don't know, I just figured you definitely had to bring it up, especially talking about movies this year.
Yeah. Yeah, we've gotten so many really good ones. I think that what the problem right now, and I think why people are pushing back at Marvel pretty hard, I feel like this year, in general, right? Because I heard a lot of mixed things about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yep.
And I think that, and Spider-Man Homecoming
I think I've read more negative things about Marvel this year than any
previous year, and that's really what honestly sparked this podcast. Is the pushback now with Marvel, and at least some of it. I know not everybody is. Obviously, people are going to see these fucking movies, but like there's an aesthetic pushback, and I think that it's because these 3 movies were really close to each other as far as tone. Where I think that in previous years, we've gotten a great variety. You know what I mean? Like, even if they have their Marvel-iness to them, like, we still got things like Doctor Strange or Ant-Man. You know what I mean? Both movies that are Iron Man ripoffs, quote-unquote, right?
Yeah, heavily criticized films.
That I think that they have a diversity to them, to each film. Aesthetically, especially. Like, visually, aesthetically, they feel like their own thing. When you start breaking down the plot, it's like, yeah, it's kind of like Iron Man with magic. It's like Iron Man with ants. when you break down the plots, it really starts to make them look very, similar. You know what I mean? And it's really simple in that way. But I think that it's when you look at them visually, and for some people, it's like music. Like movies are so visual. I mean, they are obviously as a medium, but I think for people, as far as what they remember, what they internalize, what they think of a film, all it takes is an image. And I think that that when you look at those films, and when you look at the trailers too, especially, because I think a lot of this stuff happens with the trailers, happens at Rotten Tomatoes, as far as people seeing them or forming their opinions. It usually happens now before people walk into a theater, not after, which I find funny. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's because they have a very similar aesthetic, going from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 to Thor Ragnarok. They are close, but they're meant to be close. We're connecting Marvel Cosmic right now. We need to make Thanos showing the fuck up seem like a sensible thing that happens. We need to explore the cosmic world. We need to open it up. And having a couple of movies that really explore the universe. We can see the Sovereign. We can see multiple planets in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I love that movie. And then we got to see even kind of a little bit more. Getting to see some of the Planet Cult stuff in Thor. We got to see more of Asgard. We got to really delve more into this more space adventure that Thor gets to go on, where it feels so much more explorative than the other films that we've had in the Marvel Universe. But they don't feel quite as diverse because of it, because we're occupying similar space.
Yeah, well,
and I think that's where people are kind of going, like, pushing back now.
That's a big complaint of Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah.
Iron Man's in it too long or too much, and it's I really like that aspect of it.
I thought you guys wanted a connected universe.
Yeah, I wanted to read an issue. I wanted to watch an issue of comic books where Iron Man bumped into Spider-Man.
For me, there's nothing better. There's nothing better in the comic books. It's funny because it's usually Doctor Strange, but it's there's nothing better in the comic books than when you have that like featured character show up. One of my favorite scenes in Daredevil, Guardian Devil, is he has to go to Doctor Strange, and this is from comic books. I'm sorry, people, I didn't establish that already, but he has to go to Doctor Strange for help, and it's one of the most interesting, awesome scenes because you get this little thing where this extra different flavor comes into the scene and shares it with it. And I thought they did such a great job in Thor Ragnarok of that. They kind of recreated the feeling that has. Like, where it's like, this is this connected universe. Sometimes you bump into other heroes.
Yeah.
And those are some of the most fun moments, and Marvel does it better than anybody. Those are the best moments in Marvel comics. Like when Jessica Jones sits down with Captain Marvel to discuss who she should date next. I'm sorry, those are the scenes I loved reading. Those are the scenes that really got me into the fact that this is a connected comic universe. And I feel like those moments are integral. Like having Iron Man and Spider-Man Homecoming, like he didn't outstay his welcome. The role that they set up made sense for him in the MCU. The MCU is its own universe. We need to start treating it as such. In this universe, it makes sense for Tony to be involved with Spider-Man in his film.
I think going off, we touched about this too, but like the information, and you talk about like how people are criticizing movies before it came out. Justice League has been criticized since BVS has come out.
Yeah, totally.
That would never have happened, and impossible to have happened 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Which already sets it up for less box office potential. Yeah. Automatically.
Yeah, it's word of mouth now. Word of mouth, internet, that's what's going to determine if audiences come out.
Oh no, Justice League's in trouble. Yep. 30 years ago, you would have never even known that. You would have not known that. You would have gone to the theater. You would have gone to the movie because you wanted to. You would have sat down. You would have watched it. You didn't hear or see a single other person talk about that movie if you're going opening night. Mm-hmm. And you would have had no opinion but your own in that moment. And what would that opinion actually look like?
John, you're pitching me a very scary world where we have our own opinions. We must think critically. I don't know.
It's true though. It is true, and you talk about kind of like the connectedness now with Marvel and all these characters and stuff. I don't know. Imagine if Iron Man would have just bumped into Spider-Man. You didn't know that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the feeling that would kind of, it would be a different feeling. It would be a different reaction from everyone that even criticized it for what it was. It would be a different reaction.
Have talked about a lot, too, with Thor Ragnarok. They should have hid the Hulk. And I have to say, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I get it.
He's a big marketing.
You show the Hulk,
marketing. Yep.
Everybody's going to come in. Everybody's going to sit down. Like, oh, my God,
yep.
Thor and the Hulk. Because the Thor films weren't doing very well. They needed a little something extra to get people to come in. And the problem with that, though, is imagine that moment. It sucks that I have to say it like that. Imagine that moment without a trailer. Imagine that moment without viral marketing. Imagine that moment without it popping up on your Facebook wall inadvertently. Like... These are the things in film that we miss.
Yeah.
We don't get this anymore. And I've heard a lot of people saying, I don't watch trailers anymore. And I really think they're right.
Starting to get on that train a little bit. Well, I mean,
it depends.
It depends. I haven't watched like the last 2 trailers of Justice League.
There you go. That's kind of how I am a little bit.
I'll watch that teaser. I'll watch that initial trailer. I will try to. I mean, sometimes you can't help it. You can't help it. It's auto playing on my Facebook wall right now.
There you go. Exactly.
But but I try to like avoid some of that stuff. And I just don't have time. I get lucky that I get lucky that I have to work like 50 hours a week and have 3 children and a wife, and I'm trying to do a YouTube channel where I pump out content and I'm editing, just all that stuff. I'm a busy person. And I don't know, when you're watching like 15 trailers a week, it gets old a little bit. It's like at this point, like it's some of the most refreshing experiences I've had in recent memory going to the movie theaters is with nothing.
With nothing, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, like, it's because what has garnered interest has changed for people. I feel like, Roger Ebert's death has definitely shaken up as far as what the movie critic world looks like now. It's all about aggregators. It's all about what's the average score that everybody gave this one. Which I think is a really weird, fucked up way to look at film in general, as far as like determining if you're going to go see it or not. It's, hey, are you interested in this? You are? Go see it. I really don't think it needs to be more complicated than that. I feel like people limit the scope of their view because of it. It's made audiences more closed-minded, I feel like, in a lot of ways. They hear one negative thing or a few negative things. Well, what are the early reviews saying? And I mean, yeah, it's a smart way to shop. You're voting with your dollars. You want to make your votes count. I get it. But I think at the same time, though, you have to be open to trying new things. You have to be open to something that maybe you weren't expecting. And I think that it really limits that. It limits that in this age of information and the fact that I can find bootlegged clips of this and I can download that and I can watch 5 trailers before the film comes out. And it's too much. It's too much to really sit there and actually get any real enjoyment of it. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be less like dopamine being like spread throughout your brain when that happens. Literally.
Like, scientifically, biologically, yes.
You're having less fun. Science says you guys are having less fun out there.
Science actually says that having commercial breaks in your shows amplifies your experience of the television show.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fun stuff like that. I mean, if you're into biology and all that cool stuff.
Or into some really weird fetishes, patience sometimes is the ultimate aphrodisiac.
It is true, though.
It is totally true.
It is true.
Sometimes, you have to just actually let yourself want something. Not just always have things. Actually want them. Oh man, it's such an interesting thing though, because this just the subject, because of the fact that escapism is so personal. It's so personal and it cuts down so deep to the core. It's our comfort.
But escapism is not even really escapism anymore because of how everything is connected now. How much do you really escape when you go into a movie anymore. You've already seen like 15 minutes of it in the trailers. You know, you got like 14 people like texting you while you're in the movie theater. Unless you turn your phone off. Good for you.
Yes, please. Good for you.
Unless you're a parent like me and you can't actually turn your phone off because your kid could be dying with the babysitter and you have to keep it on. And because you kept it on, you know, Facebook is blowing up in your pocket at the same time. Just the cynical aspects of being a parent. But yeah, no. I don't know. Just the way society has gone has definitely depreciated. You know, just the value of all these things has gone down.
For sure.
We live in a world where Blade Runner couldn't even make its money back.
Yeah.
Oh,
because the name of the game is convenience.
Yeah.
You know, we're so informed to the pack.
I didn't get my McDouble in 1 minute and 14 seconds. Like, I'm gonna throw a fit.
Well, it's funny. It's like we're so informed, we're miserable.
Yeah. Sad.
You know, it definitely though. Trying to reel back a little bit to our subject here with comic book movies and the different tones that they can have. You know, it's something that is so subjective. This escapism is so subjective because where someone wants to escape to is so individualized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where I want to go mentally to escape is different than where you want to go mentally to escape. And I think it should be. I think that the fact of the matter is that we should, at the end of the day, feel blessed. We're blessed with having a wide variety of films in this genre, that we are watching filmmakers get to expand this genre in ways that we never thought. I think we're finding out that comic book movies are one of the most diverse and expansive genres in film.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that.
And it's why the longevity I think that we could possibly potentially have. But I think our audiences at the same time need to understand that just like picking up that comic book like I talked about, is that when you pick up Spider-Man, it's not Daredevil. And Daredevil sure as fuck ain't Batman, don't tell me any different. I'll fight you. The diversity is what makes comic books comic books. It's what makes them special, and it's what makes them able to be the escapism that we have. All of them mean something to us, but I'm sure all of us have one that means the most. And it's because of that individualism.
It's tough to call. But yeah, I think like just going off that, you said it's the most diverse, most expansive genre. Because I mean, like, comic book movie has become now CBM. Like that's a household thing now. You know, CBM. That's a CBM. It's a genre. It's not really though. You know, at the same time, because all these films are so different. Logan is a drama western. You know, like that's what Logan is.
Agree.
Whereas Thor Ragnarok is a comedy adventure, like fantasy comedy adventure. You know, it's a
fantasy sci-fi.
Fantasy sci-fi, yeah.
Agree.
Deadpool is a comedy. You know, it's what it is.
One of the greatest comedies of all time. I'm pretty convinced.
Spider-Man: Homecoming. It's a coming of age. It's you know, it's I don't know. You know, it's action. Yeah, I don't know. You know, just all these different things. Whereas Dark Knight, that's a thriller. You know, that's essentially. It's
a crime thriller, mystery movie, with just like a Batman movie should be.
Yeah, and I think that, like, you know, talking about like the Dark Knight effect, and like people want their films to be a specific way, you know, and like, or they want their CBMs to be limited to a certain thing, or less. You know, like we want 3 different kinds, and those are the 3 different kinds we get. But like you're gonna get all kinds of different ones because there's so many different ones that you could tell. It's like breaking it down to like the V for Vendetta or the Deadpool, like which is better, and how would you actually objectively decide which one is better?
Can we just watch both?
I actually have not watched V for Vendetta in way too long. That's one I need to revisit because that is a really good film, and I think that one's way underappreciated as well.
I watched it actually a few months ago, and it is still such a goddamn good film.
It's so good.
But I would have a hard time sitting there next to Deadpool because it's 2 very distinct things. You know, like I said, comic books have evolved and changed throughout the time that they've existed. They've gone from damn near war propaganda to escapism, kid fun, when the sidekicks came in, to overly serious, roided out, sexual fetish, fat magazines. All the way to the point now of where we have, the films that we have and the wide diversity now of these characters. The comic book genre is excessively diverse, and it will continue to be diverse.
Yeah, we get Black Panther next.
Exactly.
Can't wait.
They're going to keep evolving. They're going to keep changing. I think what a lot of people need to realize is that they are going to be different, and that doesn't necessarily mean that every outing is exactly geared for you. You have to find the heroes that work for you, the heroes that you can believe in, and maybe find some of yourself in. That's what I did at every single comic book shelf I ever did as a kid. And that's exactly what you have to do now while you're watching these films. Yeah, and in that way, it's such a success.
Yeah, if you really come from that angle, I think some of that cynicism really drops off. I think you can cut some slack to some of these other movies because that's not really geared towards me. But damn, that is entertaining still. Like, how is that not entertaining? I don't know. That's just how I feel about it.
In a world where we have media and we have things we have a flavor for everyone, go out there, find your flavor, guys, and enjoy it. And none of you are wrong for enjoying the escapism that you choose. Let your heroes be your heroes. And don't let the cynicism that we have because of the internet ruin any of that for you or anyone else around you. I think on that note, we can bring this podcast to a close, guys. Please tell us in the comments what you think about our sprawling discussion today, about the tone of the comic book genre and what comic books hopefully mean to us and to you guys. So, I've been Giovanni Carlo.
And I'm John Vandeloo.
And we'll see you guys for the next podcast.